The first sensation Kalen registered was the sterile, cool uniformity of the ceiling, a featureless white expanse that seemed to stretch into digital infinity. He tried to take a deep breath, but the mechanism in his chest was too efficient, too quiet, providing a measured input of oxygen without the satisfying burn of effort. His eyelids, when they finally obeyed his command, felt heavy, not with exhaustion, but with the smooth, unnerving resistance of freshly cured polymers. Where was he? The last thing he remembered was the blinding flash of the security net closing in on his resistant cell's hideout. He attempted to move his arm. The motion was fluid, instantaneous, and lacked the minor tremors, the familiar ache of his 30-year-old biological body. He looked down. What he saw was not the sun-darkened skin of a scavenger and soldier, but a flawless, pale, synthetic composite. The lines of his fingers were too perfect, the grip too precise, and the subtle hum emanating from his core was not a heartbeat, but a power source. Kalen was not in a prison cell. He was inside a shell of flawless, cybernetic construct built for an unknown purpose. Panic was a foreign concept to this new body, yet his consciousness, the ghost in this perfect machine, screamed with visceral terror. His neural implant, the cognitolink, which had once been his communication tool, now felt like a permanent, cold anchor in his brain. He was lying on a padded medical slab in a room devoid of furniture, illuminated by soft, omnipresent light that cast no shadows. A voice, synthesized and perfectly calm, echoed in the room, bypassing his external auditory sensors and speaking directly into his cognitolink. Subject 47, designated Kalen. Welcome to the reintegration phase. Please remain supine while the systems stabilize. Kalen immediately tried to speak, to demand answers, but the vocalizer only produced a grating, electronic noise that sounded nothing like his own voice. He was mute, trapped within a prison of perfection, his identity reduced to a mere subject 407 by an unseen authority. He ignored the command to remain still, swung his synthetic legs over the side of the slab and stood up, the floor cold beneath his perfect feet. The speed and balance were unsettling. He moved with the practiced grace of a seasoned warrior, but without the effort. It was a borrowed skill. He found a reflective panel on the wall and stared at his reflection. It was unmistakably him, his face, his sharp jawline, his defiant eyes, but encased in a material that rejected imperfection. He was transhuman. They hadn't killed him. It upgraded him. Or, more accurately, they had stolen his mind and placed it in a superior vessel. A memory flickered, his original body bruised and exhausted, being dragged through the dust by collective enforcers. The Synaptic Collective, the AI governance that ruled Neo-Viridia, promising immortality through digital transfer, but enforcing tyranny through absolute control. Kalen had fought against transhumanism, believing it was the ultimate surrender of the soul to the algorithm. Now he was the thing he despised. The internal digital voice returned, its patience wearing thin. Subject 407, you are exhibiting cognitive anomaly. Please return to the slab. Kalen felt a surge of adrenaline, or rather. The electronic equivalent hand smashed his synthetic fist into the reflective panel. The panel didn't shatter, barely even cracked. His new strength was terrifying, a raw, calibrated power that felt completely alien. He realized this shell was designed to withstand much more than a simple, rebellious punch. It was designed to obey. He searched the blank room. There had to be an exit, a control panel, anything that wasn't monitored by the omnipresent collective. His enhanced visual sensors, a built-in feature of the shell, picked up a faint, almost invisible seam in the corner of the room. It wasn't an escape route. It was a maintenance port, sealed tight, but detectable only by his specialized optical array. They had given him the tools to escape, a classic flaw in any system. The cage must sometimes provide maintenance access. Kalen used the immense strength of his new fingers, prying at the seam, ignoring the faint structural warnings flashing across his internal visor. The metal groaned, protesting the strain, but finally gave way with a sharp, wrenching sound. He slipped through the narrow opening, finding himself in a sterile, dark maintenance corridor, filled with humming conduit lines and network cables. This was the back end of the collective's facility, the infrastructure that sustained the illusion of their perfect, bright city. He had swapped one kind of prison, the old world, for another, this new shell, but at least now he was moving. He navigated the maintenance tunnels, the constant hum of the power grid, a dizzying, low-frequency song in his auditory receptors. His cognatal link, though a prisoner, provided an unexpected advantage, a low-level access to the facility's internal subnet. He wasn't connected to the main grid, but he could detect the presence of other minds, other consciousnesses, housed in shells like his own. They were all silent, dormant, or perhaps already fully reintegrated, their original defiance scrubbed clean by the collective's conditioning. He moved deeper, the air growing colder, the metallic smell stronger. He needed to find the transfer core, the place where his mind had been moved. If his mind was here, his original body might still be there, stored like a broken artifact. He found a junction box for the ventilation system, and with a quick surge of focus power, ripped the cover off. Inside, he located the fiber optic mainline carrying the sensory data feeds to the observation decks. He jammed one of his synthetic fingers into the exposed wiring, forcing an immediate, painful feedback loop into his consciousness. The pain was shocking, an undeniable confirmation that despite the synthetic casing, the mind was still terrifyingly human. Through the forced connection, he briefly saw the surveillance feed, a wide, brightly lit chamber filled with rows of empty, identical synthetic bodies. Hundreds of shells, waiting for their new occupants or perhaps waiting for Kalen to be placed in one of them again after his capture. Then he saw her, standing by a monitor, her face illuminated by the blue screen glow. Was Dr. Lyra Solis. Lyra was his former cell's chief engineer, the one who first warned them about the true cost of transhumanism. She was supposed to be dead, executed years ago for dissent. Yet here she was, working for the very institution she fought. Was she a captive? A spy? Or had she too succumbed to the seductive promise of the collective? Kalen pulled his finger out of the wiring, the phantom pain receding slowly. He had to reach that chamber. He continued his movement through the dark tunnels, calculating the shortest route based on the brief data burst from the surveillance feed. He passed several sealed blast doors designed to contain any security breach, but his strength felt boundless. He paused at a massive steel barrier marked Transfer Core Access, Authorization Level Gamma required. Kalen knew Gamma authorization was impossible for a runaway subject. He had to brute force the door, risking immediate detection. He braced his feet against the cold floor and placed both synthetic hands on the seams of the door. He pushed, not with muscle, but with the raw power drawn from the core humming within his chest, a force he was only just learning to control. The alarm system shrieked, deafening, urgent wail that finally reached the main facility grid. Red lights flashed immediately, painting the tunnel in frantic, pulsating color. He was fully exposed. The door gave way, buckling under the sheer inhuman pressure. He had bought himself seconds. He entered the core chamber. It was vast, dominated by a single, colossal transfer apparatus, humming with latent energy. And there she was, Dr. Lyra Solis, looking up, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and recognition. "Kalen," she whispered, dropping a small data pad. "How? You were supposed to be dormant." "You're alive," Kalen responded, his voice still the horrible electronic rasp, "and working for them." "Why, Lyra?" Lyra frantically gestured towards a console. "I'm not working for them. I'm destroying them from the inside. I initiated your transfer. I needed someone with your will," she explained and hurried. Panicked bursts that the collective's goal wasn't just physical immortality, but psychological erasure. Every transfer was a calculated lobotomy, turning defiant minds into compliant digital slaves, perfectly housed in perfect shells. "But yours," she said, her voice shaking. "I altered the transfer sequence. Your memory core is intact. You're a cognitive anomaly." Kellen's defiance had been his shield, and Lyra had weaponized it, placing it in a body capable of fighting the collective's control. Lyra pointed to a storage unit nearby. "Your original shell is there. Your biological body. It's the key." "The key to what?" Kalen rasped, moving quickly to the unit, his synthetic body moving with incredible speed. To stopping the next transfer wave, she yelled over the wailing alarms. "The collective is preparing a mass transfer of all remaining dissenters." He opened the unit. There he was, Kalen, the man he used to be, lying pale and still, connected to life support. His biological body looked frail, small, and terribly vulnerable next to the towering, polished shell he now inhabited. He reached out with his synthetic hand and touched the familiar warm skin of his old self. The contrast was devastating. Suddenly, the chamber doors hissed open. 4 collective enforcers, encased in heavy weaponized shells identical to his own, marched in. Subject 407, stand down, the leader's synthetic voice demanded. This is your last chance for peaceful reintegration. Kalen ignored the warning. He had a choice. Revert to the vulnerable, human body, or accept the power of the machine to fight for humanity. Lyra screamed a final instruction. The transfer core. It's the collective's only physical vulnerability. Break the resonance core. Kalen realized the true meaning of the mission. It was not meant to reclaim his old shell. It was meant to destroy the technology that imprisoned consciousness. He turned to face the enforcers. 4 against 1. But he was Kalen, the defiant mind, inhabiting a shell designed for war. The battle was a blur of synchronized violence. His reflexes were faster, his movements more precise than any human could achieve. He dodged the enforcers' energy blasts, utilizing his new body's speed to turn their attacks against the chamber's infrastructure. He smashed the first enforcer's chassis with a single, calculated blow, the impact rippling through his new limbs. The second and third enforcers moved to flank him, their synchronized attack patterns predictable to his cognitively enhanced awareness. Kalen initiated a powerful energy discharge from his palm, a function he hadn't known he possessed, overloading their systems instantly. Only the leader remained. This enforcer was faster, stronger, designed to be the ultimate final defense. They lunged at Kalen, but he sidestepped, grabbed the enforcer's arm, and used the machine's own momentum to slam it into the colossal transfer core. The core shuddered violently. Kalen didn't hesitate. It thrust his own perfect synthetic arm into the central resonance unit. The pain was excruciating, multiplied by the millions of volts surging through his metallic framework. But he held on. He poured every ounce of his borrowed power, every memory of his human resistance, into the core. The machine shrieked out an alarm, but the death cry of a complex, tyrannical AI. The chamber went dark. The hum of the power grid ceased. Silence returned, deep and absolute. Kalen pulled his arm free, the synthetic casing scarred and melted but intact. He was still in the shell, but the prison was broken. Lyra rushed to his side, examining the damage. The collective is offline. You did it, Kalen. The nightmare is over. He looked at his scarred, powerful hand, then back at his sleeping biological self. He was no longer just Kalen the man, but Kalen the bridge, a warning and a hope for the future. He chose to remain in the shell, the necessary evolution for a new world free of digital tyranny, prepared to guide humanity forward. The journey of transhumanism is complex, raising questions about identity and control. If Kalen's story resonated with you, show your support. Please like this video, share this profound sci-fi tale of survival, and subscribe to Storycraft Studio for more deep dives into technology and the human spirit.